Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome to Uncommon Sense. I'm Junia and thank you for joining us. My guest today is Dr. Sasha Savage, a graduate of Wayne State University School of Medicine and certified in faculty development from the University of Michigan. Dr. Savage is a family practitioner at the Mid-Michigan Medical Center in Midland and serves as the medical director of the Family Practice Center. Welcome, Dr. Savage. How did you get interested in medicine as a field for a career?
When I was 19, I went to South America for 2 years. Had a chance to go down there as part of a 2-year mission for my church and had no interest in medicine up to that point. But one of the gentlemen who served as a mentor for me down there, he was a pediatrician. And he was just such a good guy, and I loved what he did. And as he talked to me about his professional career, I became intrigued that maybe that was something I would like. So when I got back to school after those 2 years, decided I would study biology. And biology really did for me kind of the rest. It got me excited about the human body, about what a physician might be able to do to help people, and I pursued it.
Oh, interesting. What does a family physician do as opposed to an internist?
Internists and family physicians are both considered primary care. So largely we deal with people on their most normal functional levels. We try to keep them healthy. We try to also be their first point of contact for if they become ill. And then in today's world with the ever-evolving medical system, we become kind of a crucial guidance counselor, if you will, for them to help navigate the complexities of the medical system. So we'll put them in contact with specialists. We will be with them in the hospital. That's one thing I love about practicing in Midland is that the family docs, I still deliver babies, I work in the hospital, have my clinic, and then I get to the additional benefit of doing some teaching as well. So
I thought they have hospitalists now, and doctors aren't allowed in. What's a division? When do you get a hospitalist? When do you get you?
I guess you get me if you call my office and say, hey, I want to see Dr. Savage. But a lot of primary care docs, because of the demand of the field, practice only outpatient medicine.
Right.
We're a bit unique in our practice because we actually teach residents. And because we teach residents, we have to model for residents every facet of their practice that they may choose to pursue. So if they're going to deliver babies, we still have, as their faculty, have to deliver babies. If they're going to work in the hospital, we work in the hospital. So we have a standardized curriculum, and we just keep doing it all.
Oh, I love that.
It's fun.
What did you learn from teaching that you didn't learn as a medical student or a practicing physician?
Teaching is fun. I think as a student, teaching, always being the recipient of it, always felt a little stressful, like you were always under the gun. And being a teacher is just a lot of fun. You get to tailor the education to the residents or the students you work with, and it forces me to try to keep up with them. These are smart people. And so it's a constant push to keep sharp in the field.
How important is the whole field of wellness as we describe it, or what we were talking about earlier, the maintenance of good health for a longer period of time?
That's kind of our holy grail. To us, that's everything. We recognize that we need to be skilled in the treatment of certain chronic diseases and acute illnesses, but what we love the most is helping people maintain their good health. What are the lifestyle choices? What are the activity levels they would optimally achieve if they would wish to keep their health high. So that's where we would love to spend the grand majority of our time. As it is right now, we try to focus on that a lot, but most of our time is spent on chronic illness.
So I can understand what you eat, stress levels, exercise levels, smoking, I guess, that seems very antiquated. And but there are newer fields like genetic modulation and inflammation, and some of these drugs that now are going to be tested about extending the wellness period in a person's life. Do you follow any of that? Is that of interest to you?
I think that's always of interest. Do I follow it? Probably not as well as I would like to. And some of that just has to do with the constriction of time. There's only so much time to do certain things, and the demands of our clinic and the demands of teaching make it so a lot of that stuff I don't get as much access into.
I see. Going back to the doctor, the pediatrician, and what did you admire about him? What did he do that looked interesting or inspiring?
I think the first thing that drew me to him was just he was a good man. This was a man who was good to his wife. He was just very gentle, very kind. You always knew when she walked into the room because she had his attention. And it was a very genuine affection that I saw. So I was a little curious, what creates a guy like that? What role did his profession play, or did his profession become a byproduct of just who he had become? I think it was the latter. His profession became something he chose because he cared about people. And that was curious to me. As a 19-year-old on a mission, I was supposed to, really love people, but I was 19. And the reality was I was just on the front end of learning how to do that. So this guy, he caught my attention. And then he had 6 daughters. And I watched how he treated his children. He was a gentleman on every level. And so he, without knowing it, he pushed me front and center that direction. I wanted to have a family like he had, and I wanted a profession that would allow me to do as much good as what I saw him doing.
And at 19, when you go on a mission, or maybe even earlier, 18, what does the church, or what did you expect to come away with besides converts?
That's a good question. Honestly, I didn't know. I mean, in our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as the Mormon Church, we kind of grow up expecting that a mission is part of what we're going to do. And that's how it had been kind of for me. For the longest time, I had kind of said, I'm not going to do it. But when the time came, I actually was really excited for it. What did I think I would get out of it? Experience. But I didn't know what kind. I figured experience that would make me better. Almost everyone I talked to who had served a mission said, it's the 2 best years of your life to date, and it helps build for a greater future. What I came away with, though, was a better understanding of me. What would make Sasha Savage a better human being? I saw things that I couldn't have seen any other way. I was asked to become involved in complex matters that I wouldn't have ever done as an otherwise normal 19-year-old. And so there was a maturation process that was profound for me. And for me, it really did. It put me on the road to becoming the guy that I saw my mission president. That's who I looked up to. I saw he had become. So going into it, I didn't know. Coming out of it, up to that point, best 2 years of my life, because it taught me to be a good man.
And did you choose these experiences, or can you give us an idea of what they were?
I grew up in a modest home, but we never wanted for anything. My mom and dad were good to each other. It was me and my 2 sisters, Jennifer and Jessica, right underneath me. So life was always very good for us. Then I'm put in Chile. That was the country I went to. And I remember the first area where I arrived, just the simplicity of their lives. It was different than anything I had ever seen before, and yet I found a happy people there, a very happy people. What was more was I got transferred to different areas. Usually about every 3 to 6 months you transfer areas. And one of the areas I was in was the city of Los Andes, which was in the Andes Mountains. And I had the responsibility of riding a broken down bike
Right.
through 25 miles through the mountainsides, visiting people who otherwise had no access to their church leaders. And the degree of poverty, the raw conditions, at times the abuses that you would run across because of the conditions in which they lived, those touched me in ways that I couldn't forget. And so I determined I wanted to become someone who could speak for them. Or could, if I couldn't speak for those actual people, when I returned home, I would become educated so I could speak for people maybe who didn't have a voice. It was those types of things, probably multiplied 10,000 times over, that changed me.
Did you receive any training on how to go to a person's house and talk to them spiritually?
For 2 months, when you're called as a missionary in our church, you go to a training center and they typically teach you the language and teach you how to teach. That was good, but admittedly I think my greatest training came from my 19 years in my home. I had watched my dad and I had watched my mom. And I was one of those teenagers who wasn't easy.
Yeah.
I had pushed them on 1,000 different levels, but they were the ones who taught me everything I needed to know about being a missionary. The 2 months in the missionary training center, that was a little bit of frosting on the otherwise well-developed cake that my mom and dad had exposed me to. So home life for me is what prepared me the best.
What did you take from that served you so well in Chile?
Take from home?
Yes.
I think I took a work ethic. I also took the fact that my mom and dad had not been afraid, nor had my sisters. You know, we didn't always get along, but we learned how to express ourselves. So learning as a young person how to have a voice mattered. Then learning how to express it. That's where I watched my dad. My dad was a quiet, not too tall guy from Utah. My mom is a 6 foot tall gal from Germany.
Oh.
They met when he traveled to Germany, and she still is to this day very outspoken, and my dad was more quiet. I watched as he just handled with grace all the circumstances in the home. He taught me that you can handle any complexity if you keep your composure and if you genuinely want to hear what the other person is saying. So while I didn't learn that well enough in my teenage years, it started the process for me. And so I really credit my mom and my dad. My mom gave me my voice. My dad taught me how best to use that voice.
Yes, to listen and find a solution or
and to find
way.
common ground.
Yes, common ground.
Yeah.
And when you finish a mission, do you report, or is there what's the next step when you get home?
So you get home and there is a brief report you give. You typically give it to several of the leaders in the local church. They want to hear how your experiences were, but that's all of a half hour is about it. And then you are released, so you no longer have that responsibility, and you return to life. So for me, it was coming home and trying to get back into the habit of living without a lot of the structure that was there on my mission. And also trying to take all the good habits I learned there and now put it into application for where I would now go.
And you're now a bishop in the church.
I am.
That's a great compliment and a great responsibility.
It is a responsibility, yeah.
And I understand that, I'm saying this so you can correct me.
Sure.
That from a Mormon point of view, you are not only responsible for the spiritual and sort of economic well-being of your church members, but ultimately you pray for all of us in the area and sort of have, I don't want to call it a spiritual responsibility even though they aren't dedicated to the church. Is that so, or how does that work?
Yeah, I guess I would put it as one of my greatest desires, and dare I say, I think the interest of any bishop is to be a good citizen. We do care about the people in our communities. Are the people in my community in my prayers? Absolutely. Do I try to get involved in ways to make life better for the people with whom I rub shoulders? That is probably one of the most important things I seek to do. The process of that is sometimes a slow one. But prayer to me is a comforting way to feel like day in, day out, I can do a little bit of that. I don't so much, dare I say, pray that people will have certain spiritual experiences, but rather that we would collectively find a way to make life better for everybody. I know all too well as a physician, because when people come and talk to me and the door closes, there's a lot of heartache in this world. There's a lot of heartbreak. And so much of what I try to do is, can we find ways within the community to lift spirits? Can we find ways to, whether that's economically, reaching a segment of people that don't have much educational opportunity or job opportunity. Maybe it's reaching out to folks who have struggled because their social circumstances have been marred by abuse or substance challenges. How do we lift them? These are oftentimes the things that we try to pray about and then try to go out into the community and make a difference on. But again, it's slow.
Do you pray at a regular time of day?
I pray most of the day. I joke with our congregation, because I'm constantly encouraging them to pray too, and I say, listen, pray in the morning when you wake up, pray at night before you go to bed, and pray each and every time you think you need assistance. Pray when you're driving into work, but leave your eyes open. So to me, prayer is a constant for me almost. Even if I'm walking around, many times I'm trying to talk to my Father in heaven and just say, hey, listen, I could use some direction here, because I'm trying, but I'm not sure if I'm getting this right. And I find many times just wisdom or insight that I don't possess for myself will come and give me that direction.
I understand, again, this is, I don't know, that the Mormons have a very good approach to people who are in economic or spiritually hard times.
Yeah.
That they give them a lot, furnishings and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the expectation is, after you're surrounded with all this help, that you will, at some point, regain or gain
self-reliance.
Your self-reliance and footing.
That's right.
Could you say something about that?
Yeah, the welfare program that our own church created and uses is one that is largely built off of the generous donations of church members. So once a month we fast. We go for 24 hours without food or drink, and then ask all the membership to donate the equivalent or more generously, where possible, of the amount of food that they wouldn't have consumed. I find that more people donate very generously. Those monies then are under my direction to then use appropriately. And in so doing, it's my job to figure out how wisest to use that. I then meet with the folks who need the help. We try to chart a course forward, figuring out how to meet their immediate needs and maybe some of the long-term needs, and the whole time teaching ways or means or skill sets that they can then employ to again regain their footing. It's usually a fairly rewarding experience, but
is there a time, or does the time vary on the road to self-reliance, or the plan?
It varies. It varies according to circumstances and according to the people. So we try to figure out what that time might look like by just taking one step forward. How did this meet a need, and where do we help rebuild your self-reliance? My experience is that it will take months to, in some cases, years to get to that point, but most people genuinely want to be there anyway, so they're willing to work and in that process.
Now you have 8 children.
Yes.
How did your wife or the both of you organize just all these? Do you homeschool or not?
No, my wife actually jokes that if we homeschool, she would have to leave. She looks forward to the kids going out the door in the morning.
Yeah, but just the management and getting children and after school, how does she do it, or you do it, or both of you?
She does it. Now, we do it, truthfully,
Right.
but in the morning, because I'm usually out pretty early, I mean, my book, she's amazing.
Yes.
She's the heart and soul of our home. She organizes our home. She makes it the place we all love to be. And so we largely kind of follow her lead, dare I say. She kind of says, here's how things are going to go, and we do it. One more thing that I love to talk about her is that about 6 months ago, the church came to her and said, hey, listen, we would like it if you would get up even a little bit earlier in the morning and come to the church building and teach the high schoolers from the Bible. So for this last 6 months, she's been getting up usually about 5:15 in the morning and going into church and starting at 6:20 and ending at 7:10, teaching junior and senior high school kids from the Old Testament. So I married well, I will say that. She's awesome.
What attracted you to her long years ago? What did you see in her?
I thought she was beautiful, but admittedly, if I tell the truth of the story, she said she saw me first. I joke, she didn't see anything handsome so much about me. What she saw was that I was a little different. She still jokes that I carried this big red book bag over my shoulder. I wore my hat a little bit funny, she said. And she said I didn't seem to fit in really well with a lot of the other social events that were happening. And that was probably true. I was focused on my education. So up early, studying lots, not as social maybe, and she found that curious. So when we started to date, I thought I was the luckiest guy in the world. And when I asked her to marry me and she said yes, I was like, this is good for me.
In the Mormon Church, are you allowed to say no?
Absolutely.
So she could have said no.
She could have said no, and I'm sure there have been times in our marriage where she thought maybe she should have said no. But we've worked together, and it's become a beautiful thing.
And how do you teach? I don't want to say values, but what of your parents or her parents or her life, do you feel valuable to transmit to your young children?
Heather and I both came out of families who loved each other. Neither one of our families is perfect, you know. But Heather's parents loved each other. My parents loved each other. I say loved. Her parents are both still living. My dad passed away this November. But I've watched all 4 of them throughout the balance of their life, now only accepting my dad being gone the last 2 months. But our 2 sets of parents just were dedicated to each other. And so we have tried to model that for our children. We have felt that if mom and dad can show what real love looks like, that it's okay if it sometimes grinds a little bit. It's okay if sometimes there are emotions, but it's always sprinkled with respect. It's infused with respect. It's sprinkled with love. Then we believe that our children will actually see that and know what good human interaction looks like, and that will drive their moral development. That coupled with, again, we believe very strongly in just teaching about Jesus Christ. That to us is the mainstay of where we make our focus.
How do you handle the fights amongst the children?
I don't know. We should ask them. Sometimes they'd probably say not very well. We largely try to encourage them to work things out themselves. That's a much longer process, I find, than if we just came out and dictated what the consequences are. We do that sometimes too. But largely we try to encourage our kids to find a happy medium, even if it's not so happy sometimes. It's just a workable medium, and they learn from that. So
I'm really quite taken with that. I only have one child, but the friends I have who have more say the older teach the younger. Is
They
that
do. Yes.
your experience also?
Yes. Yep, our oldest children have been wonderful with the younger ones. That's not to say they don't still rib them and tease them a little bit, but they've been like parents to them. Our oldest right now is 21, and under him she is 19, and our youngest are 5 and 3.
Oh my goodness, a
Yeah,
generation.
A generation there. So the oldest ones really do act in many regards like parents, and the younger ones love it. Because if mom or dad are busy preparing,
Yes, or elsewhere.
yeah, or elsewhere, they really do help with that piece.
Oh, this is so amazing. Listen, thank you a lot. So, quickly, we have a lot to say today. In summary, it's, it's very good to admire people and pick up on their good characters. It's very lucky to have parents who teach you fortitude, follow through, and voice, and also to be quiet to hear and find common ground. It's also very important to pick who your husband or wife is going to be. No, seriously, that's
Agreed.
an important decision. And to stay true to your spiritual side. Mormonism for him, others for others, and stay in touch with God. Prayer during the day is really kind of useful. And to be responsible for people, and by all means to celebrate self-reliance. Have a good week.
To contact Junia, send her an email at info@juniadome.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadome.com. Thanks for joining us. See you next time for Uncommon Sense with Junia Doan.
Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.